Hi guys, so welcome back to our tutorials. In today's tutorial, we have yet a new design that we are going to work on using HTML and CSS. So the design comes from this Figma design. So let me move this. Okay. So basically this is the Figma design. So this one is also linked in my README file. If you go to my GitHub repository, so just search, or else go to my TikTok bio link and click on that link and then follow along that link and go to my GitHub. Look for a project called GitHub. Go to GitHub and then my username is TechWithTwin and then the project or the repository name is TikTok dash projects. And then when you land here, look for login v3. We have too many projects here. You can all see them. We have login v3. And then here in the login v3, you'll see on the bottom the README file, which has the link to the Figma design. So if you'd like to replicate this on your own, this is how you can do it. Also, we have attached images. So you can see the images, every image that I'm going to use, but you can still download them from the Figma design. So this is a free community design. You can see here on top. And the owner is called, I don't know their name, but you can go ahead and look into it. And then, so let's continue. The process you're going to use to create this layout. First thing you can see, I have a blank HTML template, blank style.css. So the very first thing is to link the CSS with the HTML document. So we do it by writing link. Then you are linking a CSS file, and then href should point to your CSS file. The names has to match, right? After that, then we can start creating the page. So how we are going to tackle this is that I'm going to create a wrapper div, or you can call it a section or a div, which will hold this whole section. So this whole section will have a div with the class of login. And then you can see we have two sections. We have the left hand section and the right hand section. Inside the left hand section, we just have an image illustration. Inside the right hand section, we have the content where now it has the logo, it has the heading, it has the paragraph, we have the login to Google, this, the inputs, and then forgot password, login, all those. And also a CTA here on the bottom. So on the Figma design, we have some additions, but I had to remove those so that the video can't be too long. But since you have the Figma design, you can try and add the remaining features. So as I said, you're going to create a wrapper div that will wrap everything and call it login. That's pretty straightforward. The next thing, we're just going to create a left hand side section, just going to call it left. And then immediately we create a right hand section. So as we said, the left hand section basically holds an image. So I'm just going to drag images folder. So I'm just going to drag my images folder and I've dragged them. So I have all the assets I need. And these are the assets I'm going to use. So we have said that on the left hand section, we are going to have just the image. So you can see this left hand section. So you can create an image, and then the image you're looking at too is the illustration image. Okay. All right. So since we have the illustration image, we can continue. So we are done with the left hand section. Nothing else we are going to do there. There are some additions we could add, but now due to time constraint, those one will be left as a homework for you if you are following along. So let's go to the right hand section. It's quite easy. So the right hand section, what do we have? We have a logo. So to use a logo, you just use an image and then go to the images and then look for logo.png. So we are done with that. The next thing you can see is these two. So these two are almost linked up together. The reason I'm saying that, if you go to the Figma design, you'll see that the spacing between these two elements is not equal to the spacing between this and the Google, this, and you can see this space is not equals to this. That should tell you that this section is linked up. So we are going to link that section and create a div and call it header. So we can say header. Inside the header now we have the heading level 2, which says login to your account, right? And then it has a paragraph which says see what is going on with your business. Okay. So we are done with those sections. The next section is the Google section. Still, this one is a button. You just create a button and create a button and say this button has two elements. It has the Google icon and the text. So you're just going to use the Google icon. So I can use an image, Google logo.svg. This time around, let's use the SVG. And then after the logo, we do have the text, which is like the description. This is a paragraph, and then the paragraph holds continue with Google. Just like that, we are done with that section. After the button, what else can you see? You see a paragraph. So you can see a paragraph. It has some dashes. I think 1, 2, let's use like 5, 3, 4, 5. We add 5 dashes, and then we add or sign in with email. And then you add 5. Just like that. So we are in this section. The next section you can see is the inputs. So in these inputs, we always like to group the input and its label. So we are going to use a div that we are going to call field. Inside the field, we have the label. And therefore, we say the for helps us so that whenever you click on the label, it highlights the input. That one is the email. And then now the input itself, which is type email. So we don't care about the name. The name is used whenever submitting the form. We have not yet gotten to a section where we are submitting the forms. So we're going to leave that out. And then the email. Then we can duplicate this down for the password input. So the for should point to the password. And the for normally points to an ID of the input. So you're going to say password. And then now the type is password. Right? We go to this section. You can see this section has two elements, one from the left, one from the right. So we are going to create a new div and call it forgot password. And then inside the forgot password, we have yet another div because you can see we have this input. We have this input of type checkbox and then its label. You can see when I click on the label, the checkbox is being highlighted. This is the work of the label and the for property. So inside here, we're going to create yet another div which will hold the input of type checkbox. We're not going to add a name here. Just going to add an ID. Let's do an ID of remember me. And then let's add the label itself. You can see the label is after the input. Yeah. So the label, the for, should point to the inputs. So that's remember me. And the label is remember me. So the next element is this forgot password paragraph. So you can just do paragraph and then say forgot password. It's a question. Finally, we have two more elements left. So we can see we have an element. This is a button. We can call it login btn and then login. Just like that. And then finally, let's add a call to action. So p dot sign up CTA. And then here in the sign up, we say not registered yet. And then we can add a span. You can see the reason I'm adding a span is because as you can see, this one has a different color. So the only way for us to identify it is either by adding a span or creating two elements. So I chose adding a span. So something else before we continue is that in Figma designs, the designer might leave the CSS properties, maybe the border radius, the fonts, all those. So normally you just go ahead and grab them from there. So as for my case, I've already done that. So let's first add a font. So let's head over to fonts.google.com. So the Figma designer left a font for us, which is called Nonito Sans. So just search Nonito Sans, click on it. And then on the bottom, you can see get font. So you can see get font and then click on that get font. And then get embed code and then copy the import and paste it in your CSS file. Just like that. So we are done with the font import. Then you can go back. So before we forget, let's go live. Now this is something someone you can forget. So let's go live. I showed you how you can go live using the live server extension in VS Code. So go ahead and do that. So the very first issue we face is that on the left hand side, the illustration image is too large. So we are going to fix its width directly in the HTML. We can say width 3. We can say width of maybe 300 pixels. So the reason we add this in the HTML markup is to make sure that the browser is requesting 300 size image. So if you do it in CSS, the browser will load a very huge image and then you crop it from CSS. So it's just good to use the HTML and grab the weight from there. So the next thing is the logo. The logo is too large as well. So you can give it a width of like 40 pixels. So you can say, so you can play around with these numbers and then you can come up with a width that suits you. The next thing is the Google icon. It's too large. We can resize it to a width of 15 pixels. All right, so that's okay. So the next thing, let's go back to the styles and then we first add the default styles, which is a margin of 0, padding of 0, and a box sizing of border box. So that sets up our CSS for us to start working. All right, so let's grab the body. And the first thing I'm going to add is a primary color. This is the CSS variable. So we use #7F265B. So what I'm saying is that we are adding a CSS variable. And the reason you're doing this is that if you have a main color, you don't want to repeat the color everywhere. You just use CSS variables. And the reason we use CSS variables is to prevent us from, whenever you want to change the color or the variable itself. Right now, whenever I'm using CSS variables, I can just change one value here. But if I was hard coding, I could change so many instances. So the next thing we are going to do here is display flex. We want to place this login page in the middle, and then justify content center like that. And then you can see now the content is too close to the edges. So we are going to ahead and adding a padding of 2 rem. You can see now it moved a little bit. The next thing, let's add some background color to the body, which is #FF E6 C9. Okay, before we continue, let's grab the login section. So we can do width of 600 pixels. And then let's add some background colors here. So let's add some background color of white. And then let's add some paddings. So we are going to add a padding of 0.5 rem. Okay, so we have some breathing room. All right, so the next thing from the body, let's specify the font family. So you can say font family. So if you go back to Google, it will tell you exactly what font family you need to add. So this is the font family you need to add, which you can just copy it from Google itself. So if you go back to the document, now you can see the font has changed. The next thing is that you can see this login page is too sharp on the edges. So we can add some border radius of 30 pixels. Okay, you can see it is okay now. So I know the next thing we might ask ourselves is how are we going to place this section? You can see the image is slightly bigger. The left-hand section is slightly bigger than the right-hand section. We are going to use CSS grids, and how CSS grids work is that you can specify the size of the column. So we are going to do a display here of grid. Now, whenever you do a display of grid, nothing changes because you have not specified how big will be the sections. So there's a property called grid template columns. So here in the columns, you can specify the number of columns you want your grid to have. This one is based on the children. Like for instance, in our case, we only have two children. We have the left and the right. So when using CSS grid, we can specify to the CSS grid how many sections do you want. So you can use fractions. So if I do one fraction, that means that each section should take up the full width. But if I use two fractions, this one will go ahead and divide the grid into two. Okay? Two equal sides. Okay? But you can also do one size is twice as large as the other. You can see. This one is two fractions of one fraction. So this is like maths, but what we are going to use is percentages. Now, this one is easier to understand because I can say my left-hand section is 50%, my right-hand section is 50%. Then we are back to 50-50. Don't worry, the image is overflowing, but we are going to fix that. So what I'm after is now I want this one to be slightly bigger with 5%, and then this one to be 45%. And then let's add some gaps. The gap is between the elements. So the gap I want between my element is 0.5 rem. So I can say 0.5 rem. The gap has been added. So let's go to the left hand section. Remember, we added the left hand section and the right hand section. So I can go to the left hand section. So in the left hand section, what I'm going to do is to prevent an overflow. So you can say overflow of hidden. So this one now prevents whenever the image overflows, does not affect the other elements. So it basically does what we have said. Okay. So the next thing we are going to add border radius on the top and on the bottom. But first, let's style the image. So the image is located at the left hand section, direct child image. So we can go to our HTML. So we can go to our HTML and see we have the dot left and then the image. So we can grab it from there. And then first thing, we give it a height of 100%, a width of 100%, and an object fit of cover. You can see. So we told the image, fill the whole size of your parent. So we can go back to the left hand section. It has an overflow of hidden, and then we want to add border radius here on the top left and the bottom left. So we can do border top left radius. We can do maybe 20 pixels. And then we want the next one to be border bottom left radius to be still 20 pixels. And then you can see we get a very, very nice design here. This one and this one. So we are done with the left hand section. Let's move on to the right hand section. So the right hand section, still the same thing. We called it right. So if you go to the right hand section, we saw that it's the right. And the very first thing you want to do here is to make sure we can give a gap between each element. We want to give a breathing room between the elements. So we are going to do, first let's add some padding. So we can say padding of 1 rem. And the padding we said is the space between the elements and the edges. So if I save, you can see now the elements have some breathing room. The next thing is that we want to display them flex. and then a direction of column. So you can say display flex direction of column. Then here is the key part. We add a gap of maybe 0.7 rem. Now you can see they stretch out to fill to give the gap. So this is the gap, this is the gap, this is the gap, this is the gap. All right, so the next thing, let's start with the heading. We're going to start here at the heading. I think the logo looks okay. We're not going to touch it. So right, and then we grab the heading level 2. We reduce its font size to something like 1.2 gram. Okay, you can see now it is resized. Okay. All right, and then I can grab this paragraph, but our heading is located inside the header. So we don't even need to use right. We can copy it from the header like that. And then let's grab the paragraph, this one. Let's reduce its font size. So we can say dot header and then paragraph. And then we can do a font size of maybe point 0.56 rem. I think 0.6 is too small. Let's do 0.7. Okay, I think 0.7 is okay. And also let's reduce the color. So I'm going to create a new CSS variable and say text color. Then I can use, let me make one up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to use that like that. And then I'm going to add the color of the paragraph as, so don't worry about the naming. So it doesn't look like much has changed. So we can change. Okay, so I think that's okay. Let's move on to the button, the Google button. So we get the Google button is located at the right hand section, and then let's give this one a class of Google BTN. So you can just grab it by the class. So you can say dot Google BTN. The very first thing is that you can see these elements are stacked. So we need to place them side by side. So we just display them flex. You can see it. And then after displaying flex, then let's add some gap between them. We can say maybe 0.8 rem. So between the icon and the text, we add some gaps. And then you want to align the items to the center. So we can say align items to the center. Let's add some paddings. We don't have a breathing room, so we can do a padding of maybe padding vertical 5 pixels, padding horizontal 10 pixels. So that looks very nice. And then let's change the border. So you can say border 1 pixel solid. Then we can let's use our text color. I know we did a bad naming, but let's use it. Okay. I think that's too bright. So we can change the color to hash E8, E8, E8. And then the border, the background should be transparent. So you can say background color transparent. Now you can see it. Let's add some border radius. So you can do border radius 5 pixels. So I still see this one is not visible. So we are going to use our variable. So you can say var text color. Just like that. I think that's too bright. So yet again, let me remove this and do DE, D2, D9. I think that's okay. Now, so let's change the color as well. So you can go to the text color. So you can say color var text color. Okay, I think that's okay. That's okay. We can change later if you want. So the next thing we need to tackle is this paragraph. So we give it a class of or, so we can just reduce its font size and the color. So we give it a class of or. So we can go back to the HTML so that I can show you. We didn't give it. So let's do class of or. Right. So the or, we are just going to reduce the font size to maybe 0.5 rem. That's too small. Let's do 0.7. I think 0.7 is okay. And then text align of center. Text align of center. We want it to be in the middle. And then the color, let's use our text color. So color. Just like that. That's okay. So the next thing, we move on to the field. These fields, you can see now we gave them a class of field. You can see it here. So it's a class of field, and then we display them flex and then flex vertical. So you can say field display flex, flex direction of column. You can see now they are respecting. So the next thing, we did not add placeholders. And then for the password, we didn't change the label. So you can say password. Then the placeholder, let's add some placeholders. So you can say placeholder 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think that's okay. And then the placeholder for the input here, we can say placeholder ABC at example. Okay. Fantastic. So the labels are too large. So we can grab the labels. We can do dot field. And then let's grab the labels. So dot not. We can grab it, the label. And then as always, the label, let's reduce the font size to 0.8 rem. That's okay. Let's also add the gap on the field, a gap of maybe 0.2 rem. I think that's okay. So let's add some paddings to the input. So we can do dot field and then input. Then padding first of 5 pixels and then 10 pixels. You can see now the input looks nice. Let's change the border radius for the inputs. Now the borders, so you can say border 1 pixel solid. And then let's use hash DE, D2, D9. And then let's add some border radius. So we can say border radius of 5 pixels. Fantastic. We are done with that section. Let's now move on to these two sections. So this one, we gave it a class of forgot password. So the forgot password. So we are going to now grab display them flex. So we can say display flex here, justify content, space between distributes the space available. All right, so let's reduce the font size for this element. So the forgot password has a div inside. This is the div I was talking about. So this is the forgot password div. You can see it has a div inside with the input and the label, and then the paragraph. So we can grab both and reduce their font size. You can say forgot password, and then we want the label, then dot forgot password, and then we grab the paragraph, and then we say font size 0.8 rem. Okay, I think the 0.8 is still large, so we can do 0.7. All right, so that's fantastic. And then we can go back to the forgot password and align items to the center. So what align items to the center does is that it aligns the two sections together. But we still need to go deep inside the next div. So we can do it here. Dot forgot password and then direct child div. Where is that? So forgot password, this is forgot password, the direct child div. We are selecting this. We display it flex and align the items to the center. So display flex here, align items center. So take note of how the checkbox is not aligned with the label. But as soon as I do that, they are both aligned and then they are so close now. Let's add a gap of maybe 0.3 rem. Fantastic. I think we are done with that section. Then the next thing is that this paragraph needs to be of a color of the primary color. So you can say forgot password, direct child paragraph, color of our primary color. Then let's also increase the font weight 500. Fantastic. So let's also now go to the login button. So this is how it should look like in the finished version, but now let's work on it. You can say login btn, and the login btn doesn't have much. First is the background color should match our primary color. So it's var, not var. Fantastic. Then it's the color is not, the text is not visible, so we can add a text color of white. Then let's add some paddings. So the padding you're going to work with is padding vertical 9 pixels, horizontal 13 pixels. Fantastic. And then let's remove the borders. So you can say border none. And then let's add the border radius. So you can say border radius of 5 pixels. All right. So let's go back to the login button. So, and then we can say display flex, line items to the center. That one doesn't work. So let's use text align as well. Center. Okay. That's all simple. Then let's make sure the text is uppercase. So we can say text transform uppercase. Then let's increase the font weight to 500. Fantastic. So let's go to the final section. This is the final section. So we called it sign up CTA. So let's see whether this is what we gave it. So you can see it's a sign up CTA, and then also it also has the span. So the first thing is to reduce the font size to maybe 0.6 rem. Not 6, but 0.6. Okay, looks nice. And then let's grab the span. So sign up CTA span, color of primary color, and then a font weight of 500. You can see it there on the bottom. I think 0.6 is small. Let's do 0.65. Fantastic. So I'm going to reach at that point, guys. So as I said, you can join our WhatsApp community. So when you click on the TikTok page, you're going to go the link in the TikTok channel. You'll go to this page which has all the communities that we have. So we have our YouTube, Discord, the WhatsApp channel. If you go to the WhatsApp, then before the challenges are created, you'll have a snippet like for the today's section. This one was given out earlier, so you could try them, and then before I release a video on them, so you can join all these. So that's it, guys. I think this one was an easy one. So thank you for watching. Make sure you like, follow, and share with your friends. Thank you.